22 Golden Age actresses who lost their beauty in tragic ways. What happens when the world's most beautiful faces begin to fade? Slowly, suddenly, or in the harsh glare of a camera that never stops rolling. Hollywood's Golden Age worshipped beauty like currency, but behind the glamour were women who paid a terrible price for it. Some vanished from the screen after illness or scandal. Others fought time with surgery, pills, or silence, and lost. The transformations you're about to witness aren't just about aging. They're about an industry that elevated women to goddesses, then abandoned them when their divinity began to crack. What makes our number 2 entry particularly shocking is how far this actress fell, from starring alongside Hollywood legends to being found on Skid Row, unrecognizable to fans who had once adored her just years earlier. Before we begin this journey through Hollywood's darker corridors, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop a comment below and let me know. I read every one of them and appreciate connecting with fellow classic film enthusiasts around the world. These 22 stories aren't simply about the inevitable process of aging. They're about accidents that stole youth in an instant, illnesses that ravaged perfect features, addictions that bloated or hollowed once luminous faces, and mental breakdowns that extinguished the spark behind captivating eyes. Some of these women were victims of circumstances beyond their control. Others fell prey to the very systems designed to maintain their beauty. A few chose paths that led to their physical transformation. All of them remind us of the fragility behind the seemingly immortal images preserved on. Let's count down 22 of Hollywood's most stunning beauties and the often heartbreaking ways their looks were altered, damaged, or destroyed, sometimes along with their careers and lives. 22. Audrey Hepburn. Audrey Hepburn, with her graceful features, swan-like neck, and large doe eyes, revolutionized beauty standards in the 1950s. In contrast to the curvier figures of stars like Marilyn Monroe, Hepburn's slender elegance brought a sophisticated European flair to Hollywood. Her captivating performances in films like Roman Holiday, Sabrina, and Breakfast at Tiffany made her a timeless icon. However, in her final years, the very slimness that defined her became a sign of her struggle. In 1992, Hepburn was diagnosed with a rare abdominal cancer that caused her already delicate frame to become alarmingly frail. Her last public appearances revealed a woman whose once vibrant beauty had been overshadowed by the harsh realities of illness, her famous cheekbones now stark against a hollowed face. Despite her suffering, Hepburn continued her humanitarian work as a UNICEF ambassador, traveling to Somalia just months before her death. Even in her weakened state, she insisted on fulfilling her mission, demonstrating an inner strength that matched her earlier grace. Hepburn passed away in January 1993, at the age of 63. Unlike many others, her beauty was never marred by scandal or addiction. Instead, her physical decline only enhanced her enduring elegance, showing that true beauty lies in resilience and grace under pressure. Her son, Sean Ferrer, later wrote that Hepburn's beauty was not in her appearance, but in her spirit, generosity, and her unwavering dedication to the causes she cherished. 21. Susan Hayward. With her striking red hair and piercing green eyes, Susan Hayward rose from modeling to become one of Hollywood's top dramatic actresses, earning 5 Oscar nominations and winning for I Want to Live. Her pale skin and vibrant coloring made her ideal for Technicolor, but her beauty and health would be tragically compromised by one of Hollywood's most haunting disasters. In 1956, Hayward filmed The Conqueror in Snow Canyon, Utah, located just over 130 miles from a Nevada nuclear test site. Unbeknownst to the cast and crew, the area was contaminated with radioactive fallout from government atomic bomb testing. No warnings were issued. By the late 1960s, Hayward's health declined. Once radiant, she became pale and suffered persistent headache. In 1972, she was diagnosed with brain cancer. Treatment left her swollen, her iconic red hair thinning, and her eyes dulled by pain medication. She was not alone. Of the 220 people involved in the film, 91 later developed cancer, including stars like John Wayne and Agnes Moorehead, an alarmingly high rate tied to the toxic filming location. At the 1974 Academy Awards, Hayward made a final appearance to present an award. Visibly frail and heavily made up to mask her illness, her transformation shocked viewers. She died just 2 months later at 57. Hayward's tragic fate is now entwined with The Conqueror, remembered as the film that killed John Wayne and Susan Hayward, a chilling reminder of how negligence and secrecy can destroy even the brightest star. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner was once dubbed the world's most beautiful animal by Hollywood. With her captivating eyes, full lips, and a walk so alluring it inspired filmmakers to invent new camera techniques Gardner exuded undeniable allure. Her breakout roles in films like The Killers, Mogambo, and The Barefoot Contessa cemented her legacy as a quintessential femme fatale. Studio executives were reportedly stunned upon seeing her first screen test. Gardner's off-screen life mirrored her fiery screen persona. She married stars like Mickey Rooney, Artie Shaw, and Frank Sinatra, and was romantically linked to figures such as Howard Hughes and George C. Scott. Known for her smoking, drinking, and intense love affairs, Gardner lived life on her own terms. However, in 1986, at age 63, she suffered a major stroke that left the left side of her body and face paralyzed. Her iconic smile became uneven, her speech was affected, and her mobility declined. For someone whose identity had been so entwined with beauty, the transformation was deeply painful. She withdrew from public life in London, avoiding cameras and limiting visits. Her housekeeper, Maureen Jordan, later shared that Gardner removed most mirrors from her home, unable to face her reflection. She relied on a compact mirror solely for applying makeup. Biographer Peter Evans described how she often hid the affected side of her face during interviews. Gardner passed away in 1990, spending her final years in quiet isolation, her once celebrated beauty altered by illness, not excess, but by fate's unfair hand. 19. Gail Russell. Gail Russell, known for her haunting beauty, had a rare and ethereal presence, with large blue eyes that seemed to embody both innocence and ancient wisdom. Her delicate features and translucent skin made her an ideal fit for supernatural films like The Uninvited and westerns such as Angel and The Bad Man, alongside John Wayne. Beneath her mesmerizing appearance was a deep, crippling anxiety. Discovered in high school, thrust into the spotlight without formal training, Russell's shyness and fear of the camera were overlooked by Paramount executives who were enchanted by her natural beauty. Despite her success, Russell struggled with intense stage fright. She admitted to being terrified, with her hands shaking and knees knocking during early performances. To cope with this fear, studio handlers introduced her to alcohol, which quickly spiraled into a dependency, eventually leading to full-blown alcoholism. By the late 1940s, the toll of her drinking was evident. Her once porcelain skin became blotchy, and her once bright eyes grew clouded. Her figure fluctuated between gaunt and bloated as the addiction worsened. Russell's decline became visible to the public after an arrest for drunk driving in 1957, where her mugshot revealed the damage alcohol had caused. Despite attempts at a comeback, her deteriorating condition made her uninsurable. In 1961, Russell died at the age of 36 from liver damage and alcohol-related causes. John Wayne, who had tried to help her, lamented how the studio system destroyed one of the most beautiful and talented actresses he had known. Her tragic story remains a haunting reminder of the destructive forces of both fame and addiction. 18. Gene Tierney. Gene Tierney was a mesmerizing beauty, known for her perfect oval face, high cheekbones, and a distinctive overbite that captivated audiences in films like Laura, Leave Her to Heaven, and The Razor's Edge. Her striking appearance earned her the title of unquestionably the most beautiful woman in movie history by Daryl F. Zanuck. However, behind her stunning facade, Tierney endured unimaginable pain. During her pregnancy in 1943, she contracted rubella after a fan broke quarantine to meet her. This caused her daughter to be born with severe disabilities, including blindness, deafness, and cognitive impairments. This tragedy spiraled Tierney into depression, and by the early 1950s, she was struggling with suicidal thoughts and psychotic episodes. In 1953, she voluntarily entered the Menninger Clinic, where she underwent electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, which at the time was much more traumatic than modern versions. The treatments, which caused violent seizures, affected her facial mobility and expressiveness, leaving a lasting change in her appearance. After her treatment, observers noted a shift in her face, with a reduced emotional range and a dimmed light in her eyes. Tierney attempted a comeback in Advise and Consent, 1962, but critics noticed her diminished presence. Reflecting on her experience, she later said, "They fixed my mind but broke something in my face." Tierney's story is one of lost beauty, not from visible illness or addiction, but from the subtle erosion of the connection between her soul and her expression. 17. Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr was once hailed as the most beautiful woman in the world, a title that reflected her near-mythical beauty. With symmetrical features, porcelain skin, and mesmerizing dark eyes, she became the epitome of Hollywood perfection in films like Algiers, Samson and Delilah, and Ecstasy. However, Lamar's true genius lay in her mind, as she co-invented a frequency-hopping technology during World War II, which later contributed to the development of Bluetooth, GPS, and Wi-Fi, yet her intellect went largely unnoticed by Hollywood, which focused only on her physical appearance. As she aged, Lamar struggled to maintain the beauty that had brought her fame. In the 1960s, she turned to experimental cosmetic procedures, including collagen injections and early dermal fillers. One of the most damaging procedures involved injecting liquid silicone into her cheeks and lips, which caused permanent facial distortions. The once perfect symmetry of her face became unrecognizable, and her expressions became stiff and rigid. By the 1970s, Lamar withdrew from public life, and her later years were marked by reclusiveness. After several shoplifting incidents, Lamar spent her final years refusing interviews, choosing to communicate by phone instead. Lamar passed away in 2000 at the age of 85, largely forgotten for her contributions to technology. It wasn't until after her death that her scientific achievements were fully acknowledged, highlighting how society valued her beauty until it faded, overlooking her intellect until it was too late. 16. Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth's famous quote, "Men go to bed with Gilda but wake up with me," captured the painful contrast between her public persona as a sultry bombshell and her private struggles. Known for her auburn hair, captivating smile, and unforgettable striptease in Gilda, Hayworth epitomized male fantasy in the 1940s. Born Margarita Cancino, she underwent a painful transformation for Hollywood, having her hairline raised and features altered to appear more American. This early lesson in manipulation of beauty stayed with her throughout her career. Despite her success, Hayworth's personal life was troubled. After 5 failed marriages, including to Orson Welles and Prince Ali Khan, she began showing symptoms of cognitive decline in the 1960s, which were wrongly attributed to alcohol use. By the 1970s, her health worsened, her posture slumped, and her once graceful movements became awkward. On set, she became forgetful, asking questions like, "What am I supposed to say?" as confusion overtook her. In 1980, Hayworth was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, becoming one of the first celebrities to publicly face the condition. For years, she had been misunderstood and labeled difficult by Hollywood. Her daughter, Yasmin Aga Khan, took care of her, later founding the Rita Hayworth Gala to raise funds for Alzheimer's research. When Hayworth passed away in 1987, she had spent her final years not recognizing her own iconic image. Once known as the Love Goddess, she had lost both her beauty and the memory of it. 15. Grace Kelly. Grace Kelly was the epitome of cool, sophisticated beauty. With her golden blonde hair, flawless bone structure, and regal posture, she exuded an aristocratic elegance that made her eventual marriage to Prince Rainier of Monaco feel destined. Her iconic roles in films like Rear Window, To Catch a Thief, and High Society showcased her timeless beauty before she retired to become a princess. Unlike many of her contemporaries, Kelly's beauty was never tainted by addiction, mental health struggles, or the usual effects of aging. Instead, her life represents the preservation of beauty, trapped in time, yet tragically unfulfilled. On September 13, 1982, Kelly's life took a tragic turn when she suffered a stroke while driving with her daughter, Stephanie. She lost control of the car, which plunged down a mountainside, causing fatal injuries. She was only 52. Medical reports indicated that had she survived, reconstructive surgery would have been required to repair severe facial trauma, forever altering her famous features. In a cruel twist of fate, Kelly's beauty remained intact as she passed away before the public could see the aftermath of her injuries. Her family ensured that no photos of the accident or her hospital stay were released, preserving the public's image of her perfection. Princess Caroline later expressed that while her mother's beauty remained untainted, she would have given anything for just one more day with her, scars or not. Kelly's death solidified her immortality as an undying symbol of flawlessness, leaving the world to wonder what would have happened if she had lived. 14. Vivien Leigh. Vivien Leigh's beauty was almost otherworldly, with delicate features, violet eyes, and a graceful neck that captivated audiences in roles like Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind and Blanche Dubois in A Streetcar Named Desire. Her stunning performances earned her 2 Academy Awards and solidified her as a cinematic icon. However, beneath her ethereal beauty, Leigh struggled with both mental and physical health issues. Diagnosed with bipolar disorder at a time when little was known about it, she faced severe mood swings that affected her appearance. During manic phases, she became gaunt, and in depressive episodes, her face lacked its usual vibrancy. In addition, Lee battled tuberculosis, which weakened her body and led to noticeable physical changes, including weight fluctuations and sallow skin. Her mental and physical health challenges grew more pronounced over time. During the filming of Elephant Walk in 1954, she suffered a breakdown, leaving her nearly unrecognizable in photos, with sunken eyes and a hollowed face. Despite these struggles, Lee continued to work until her health declined further. Her final film, Ship of Fools, 1965, showcased a woman whose beauty remained but was marred by the toll of her battles. She passed away in 1967 at 53, leaving behind a legacy of beauty and resilience. 13. Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge made history as the first African-American woman nominated for the Best Actress Oscar for her role in Carmen Jones, 1954. Her flawless skin, graceful features, and captivating eyes made her a beauty that transcended the racial boundaries of her time. Film historian Donald Bogle praised her as having the most perfect face to ever grace the screen, regardless of race. However, Dandridge's groundbreaking success came at a significant personal cost. Despite her immense talent and beauty, she struggled to find substantial roles in a segregated Hollywood, facing numerous rejections. The pressure and disappointment began to affect her appearance by the early 1960s, with visible signs of stress, tension lines, dark circles under her eyes, and nervous tics during interviews. Her personal life added to her burdens: 2 painful marriages, financial ruin from her second husband's mismanagement, and the responsibility of caring for her daughter, who had brain damage. As career opportunities diminished, Dandridge turned to alcohol. Photos from 1962 to 1965 show the toll of her struggles: subtle puffiness, a more vacant expression, and a fading smile. Forced to auction her possessions, Dandridge's humiliation was evident in photographs. By 1965, she had declared bankruptcy and was living in a modest apartment, with her appearance aging far beyond her 42 years. Dandridge died in 1965 from an accidental overdose, leaving behind a devastated legacy of unrealized potential. Her tragic story highlights how external pressures can diminish both career and beauty. 12. Patricia Neal. Patricia Neal had a unique beauty, marked by earthy sensuality and deep expressiveness. With her commanding presence, rich voice, and striking features, she brought maturity and complexity to roles in films like The Day the Earth Stood Still, HUD, for which she won an Oscar, and A Face in the Crowd. Director Martin Ritt once noted her ability to convey more with silence than many could with pages of dialogue. In 1965, at 39, and pregnant with her 5th child, Neal suffered 3 massive strokes. The strokes put her in a coma for 3 weeks, and doctors gave little hope for her survival. When she woke, the damage was severe. She experienced paralysis on her right side, impaired speech, and a noticeably changed facial appearance, with drooping and asymmetry affecting her expressions. Her husband, Roald Dahl, implemented an intense rehabilitation plan, working with her for hours daily. Through determination, Neal regained partial control of her movements, but her appearance was forever altered. In a remarkable return to acting, she starred in The Subject Was Roses, 1968, earning another Oscar nomination. Neal openly addressed her changed appearance, saying, "Parts of my face don't work like they used to, but all the important parts of me survived." Critics acknowledged her transformed beauty, seeing it as a reflection of genuine experience. Neal continued acting and became a stroke awareness advocate, embracing the face she had earned through survival. She passed away in 2010 at 84. 11. Lupe Velez. Known as the Mexican Spitfire, Lupe Velez captivated Hollywood in the 1920s and 30s with her fiery personality, physical comedy, and exotic beauty. With flashing eyes, sensuous lips, and a petite but curvaceous figure, Velez brought a vibrant energy to films like The Gaucho with Douglas Fairbanks and her popular Mexican Spitfire series. Velez lived as dramatically as the characters she portrayed. Her tempestuous romance with Gary Cooper and volatile 5-year marriage to Johnny Weissmuller, Olympic swimmer turned Tarzan, provided constant fodder for gossip columns. Her beauty was inseparable from her passionate persona. Film historian Kari Beauchamp noted, "When Lupe entered a room, everything else seemed to fade to black and white." But behind Velez's exuberant public image was a woman struggling with depression and turbulent emotions. Her career began to wane in the early 1940s as her thick accent limited her roles in the sound era and her vivacious style fell out of fashion. In 1944, at age 36, Velez discovered she was pregnant by a young actor, Harold Ramis, who reportedly refused to marry her. Facing scandal as an unwed mother in conservative 1940s Hollywood, Velez made a devastating decision. What happened next has been distorted by Hollywood mythology. The truth, documented in her suicide note and police reports, is that Velez carefully staged her final scene. She arranged her bedroom like a film set, adorned with flowers, candles, and incense, wearing her finest silk pajamas, her hair and makeup impeccably done. She then took a lethal dose of Seconal and laid down on her bed, intending to leave a beautiful corpse. But almost immediately after her death, a horrible rumor began circulating, spread initially by gossip columnist Hedda Hopper and later popularized in Kenneth Anger's sensationalistic book Hollywood Babylon, that she had become ill from the pills, staggered to the bathroom, and drowned in the toilet. This completely fabricated account became the dominant narrative, transforming a dignified, if tragic, end into a grotesque joke. The truth about Velez's final moments was overwhelmed by this false narrative. For decades, she was remembered not for her talent or beauty, but for a manufactured, undignified death that never actually occurred. Velez's beauty wasn't lost to age or illness. Rather, her legacy was distorted by Hollywood's appetite for scandal. As film historian Alicia Fletcher observed, they couldn't even let her have dignity in death. Her final image wasn't preserved, it was defaced by rumor. The tragic reality is that Lupe Velez carefully preserved her beauty in her final act, only to have that final image erased and replaced by a cruel fiction that persists to this day. 10. Veronica Lake. Veronica Lake, known for her signature peekaboo hairstyle, became an iconic beauty in the 1940s. Her sultry look and petite frame made her a star in films like This Gun for Hire and The Blue Dahlia. However, her fall from stardom was swift and tragic. By 1952, Paramount dropped her, citing her difficult behavior, which stemmed from undiagnosed schizophrenia and increasing alcohol dependence. These struggles made her unreliable on set and impacted her appearance. In the mid-1950s, Lake's once glamorous look had deteriorated. Her figure became bloated, her complexion uneven, and her once beautiful hair lost its shine. In 1962, a New York Post article revealed her working as a waitress in Manhattan, showing a woman unrecognizable from her film star days. Lake, at 39, had gained weight and looked much older, acknowledging her change by saying, "What you're looking at now is the real person." Attempts at comebacks in the 1960s failed, and by 1973, she was living in poverty. She died at age 50 from hepatitis and kidney failure, with just $400 to her name. The contrast between her former beauty and tragic end remains a stark reminder of the destructive effects of mental illness and alcoholism on both her career and appearance. 9. Frances Farmer. Frances Farmer, with her striking jawline and intelligent gaze, offered a unique, natural beauty to 1930s Hollywood. Known for her talent in films like Come and Get It, 1936, she was poised for a promising career. However, her defiance against Hollywood's control, including rejecting manufactured public images, led to personal and professional consequences. In 1943, after public incidents, she was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and institutionalized, where she underwent harsh treatments like insulin shock therapy and electroconvulsive therapy. These procedures deeply affected her, leaving her physically and emotionally hollow. By 1950, after her release, Farmer was unrecognizable, her face aged prematurely, her expressions limited, and her movements mechanical. The trauma she endured altered the vibrancy that once defined her beauty. Despite attempts at a comeback in the 1950s, critics noted the stark change in her presence, with one remarking, "The camera once loved Frances Farmer. Now it seems uncertain what to make of her." She passed away in 1970. Her story forever a tragic example of how psychiatric treatments can irreparably alter both mind and body. 8. Marie Prevost. Marie Prevost, a shining star of 1920s. Hollywood epitomized the flapper ideal with her heart-shaped face, dimpled smile, and petite, curvy figure. She transitioned from comedy to sophisticated roles in films like The Marriage Circle, earning praise for her beauty and charm. However, tragedy struck in 1926 when her mother died in a car accident, sending Prevost into a deep depression. To cope, she turned to alcohol, which eventually altered her appearance. By 1930, her weight fluctuated, and Hollywood, obsessed with physical perfection, began to reject her. Despite attempts at extreme dieting Alcohol and unhealthy practices damaged her health, leaving her with a sallow complexion and dulled eyes. By 1934, she was relegated to minor roles. Her final years were marked by isolation and health issues. In 1937, she was found dead in her apartment, a victim of acute alcoholism and malnutrition at just 38. Tabloids spread cruel rumors after her death, further tarnishing her legacy. Her tragic decline was overshadowed by false stories, with her beauty and career destroyed by the pressures of Hollywood. M.A.E. Murray. Mae Murray, a star of silent cinema, was known for her glamorous presence, earning the nickname the girl with the bee-stung lips for her distinctive pout. Her platinum curls, opulent costumes, and dramatic expressions made her the epitome of 1920s excess in films like The Merry Widow, 1925. However, Murray's personal and professional decisions led to her downfall. She married Prince David Mindavani, whose financial mismanagement contributed to her decline, and left MGM at the height of her fame after disputes with studio head Louis B. Mayer, effectively blacklisting her from Hollywood. By the 1940s, Murray's wealth had vanished, but she continued to live in the past, wandering Hollywood in outdated costumes and heavy makeup. Her appearance deteriorated over the years, with her signature bee-stung lips and platinum hair losing their former luster. By the 1950s, she was seen sleeping on bus benches, and in 1964, she was found disoriented and penniless in St. Louis. She passed away in 1965, still clinging to the belief that she was a reigning star, illustrating her tragic denial of aging. 6. Dolores Hart. In 1960, Dolores Hart became famous for starring opposite Elvis Presley in Loving You, and was quickly known as the girl who kissed the king. With her striking blue eyes and innocent charm, she seemed set for a major Hollywood career. However, in 1963, at just 24, she shocked the industry by leaving Hollywood at the height of her fame to become a Benedictine nun at the Abbey of Regina Laudis in Connecticut. Hart's transformation was intentional, a rejection of fame and beauty standards in favor of spiritual fulfillment. Her glamorous wardrobe was replaced with a simple habit, her styled hair covered by a veil, and her makeup abandoned. In the 2012 documentary God is the Bigger Elvis, she reflected on this change, saying, "What you give up are the endless hours of trying to maintain an illusion." Now known as Mother Dolores, she embraced aging with serenity, showing a more authentic form of beauty that prioritized inner peace over external perfection. 5. Susan Peters. In 1942, Susan Peters was on the cusp of stardom, having earned an Oscar nomination for Random Harvest. MGM had plans to make her their next leading lady, with her natural elegance and delicate features setting her apart. But in 1945, a tragic accident during a hunting trip left her paralyzed from the waist down at just 23. The physical and emotional toll of her injury drastically changed her appearance. Weight loss and pallor due to long recovery periods altered her once luminous complexion. Most notably, the pain left a visible tension in her face, which had once radiated a joyful expressiveness. Despite this, she remained determined to continue acting and starred in The Sign of the Ram, 1948, but audiences were struck by how much she had changed. As her health worsened, Peters struggled with depression and anorexia, ultimately retreating from the public eye. She passed away from complications related to kidney disease and malnutrition in 1952, at just 31 years old. Her story highlights the devastating speed of her transformation. 4. Linda Darnell. At the peak of her career in the 1940s, Linda Darnell was hailed as the girl with the perfect face, admired for her flawless complexion, striking eyes, and symmetrical features in films like Forever Amber and A Letter to Three Wives. Director Otto Preminger called her the most photogenic woman. Her beauty was entirely natural, and Fox studio head Daryl F. Zanuck prohibited makeup artists from altering her appearance. However, as Darnell aged, roles became scarcer, and her career declined. Struggling with alcohol, financial difficulties, and personal issues, she took on smaller roles in television and theater. Tragically, on April 10, 1965, while visiting a friend, a fire broke out in the house. Darnell saved a child, but was severely burned in the process. She died the following day from third-degree burns, just 41 years old. The painful irony was that the woman once called the girl with the perfect face had been disfigured in her final moments. 3. Gloria Grahame. Gloria Grahame became a standout figure in film noir, celebrated for her sultry voice and captivating gaze in films like The Bad and the Beautiful and The Big Heat. Her unique screen presence, defined by her distinctive upper lip, set her apart from other actresses. However, it was this feature that ultimately led to her downfall. Unsatisfied with the thinness of her upper lip, Grahame began injecting paraffin wax into it in the late 1940s. The procedure initially enhanced her look, but eventually caused the wax to harden and create lumpy bumpy, uneven textures. By the 1950s, the damage was visible on screen, and directors struggled to find ways to conceal it. Despite undergoing surgeries, the scarring and asymmetry worsened, and her once cherished feature became a liability. As her career faltered, Graham retreated to television and stage work. She passed away in 1981, with most recent photos not used in obituaries, reflecting how much her appearance had changed. 2. Barbara Payton. Barbara Payton's Hollywood journey was marked by swift rise and an even more rapid fall. In the late 1940s, she captured the industry's attention with her platinum blonde hair, seductive figure, and alluring smile. After starring in films like Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye and Dallas, she seemed on track to rival stars like Lana Turner. However, her personal life became a media circus. A public love triangle with actors Franchot Tone and Tom Neal led to a violent altercation, damaging Payton's image as the scandal branded her a troublemaker. By the mid-1950s, Payton's career unraveled as her drinking worsened. Arrests for public intoxication and solicitation followed. Her once stunning appearance deteriorated rapidly, her complexion marred by alcohol abuse, her hair brittle, and her eyes vacant. In 1962, she was found living in a squalid motel, far from the glamorous woman she once was. In 1963, Payton released a memoir, I Am Not Ashamed, detailing her decline. The book briefly brought media attention, but it only hastened her downfall. By 1967, Payton was dead from heart and liver failure at age 39, a victim of malnutrition, alcohol abuse, and violence. Once compared to Marilyn Monroe, she had transformed into a tragic symbol of beauty, destroyed by personal and professional turmoil. 1. Judy Garland. Judy Garland's journey from the beloved Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz to her tragic end is one of Hollywood's most heartbreaking stories. Signed by MGM at just 13, Garland's talent was overshadowed by her appearance, which studio executives deemed insufficiently glamorous. To meet their demands, she was put on a strict diet of chicken soup, coffee, cigarettes, and pills, including amphetamines and barbiturates, setting the stage for lifelong addiction. MGM altered every aspect of her image, from reshaping her nose to using corsets to create a youthful figure. By her mid-20s, the toll of this regimen became evident, with her appearance fluctuating dramatically due to addiction and medication. As she aged, Garland's face showed advanced aging, and she battled weight fluctuations. By the time of her death in 1969, the physical effects of years of substance abuse had aged her beyond her years. Her beauty was sacrificed by an industry focused on creating a marketable image. These women weren't just faces. They were casualties of an industry that prized beauty over humanity, youth over experience, and image over reality. Their stories remind us that physical beauty, the kind that launches careers and sells movie tickets, is both precious and precarious. Some, like Linda Darnell and Grace Kelly, lost their beauty in sudden, tragic accidents. Others, like Gene Tierney and Patricia Neal, saw their appearances altered by illness and medical treatments. Women like Gloria Graham and Hedy Lamarr damaged their own beauty through desperate attempts to preserve it. And perhaps most devastatingly, stars like Judy Garland and Frances Farmer had their natural beauty systematically destroyed by the very industry that had elevated them for it. What connects all these stories is the cruel paradox at their center. These women were valued primarily for their physical appearance, yet the pressures and circumstances that came with that valuation often became the very things that destroyed their looks. In today's world of social media filters and ubiquitous cosmetic procedures, these cautionary tales from Hollywood's golden age remind us that our cultural obsession with physical perfection has deep and troubling roots. The faces that stare back at us from vintage movie posters weren't just beautiful, they were often fragile vehicles for dreams, ambitions, and struggles that went far beyond skin deep. If this exploration moved you, please share it to honor these women's legacies beyond their physical appearance. Subscribe for more untold stories from Hollywood's golden age, where we look behind the carefully constructed images to find the complex human realities that shaped cinema history. Which of these stories affected you most deeply? Let us know in the comments below.